Orkney, a cluster of islands off the coast of northeast Scotland, is under invasion. A destructive species moves in, threatens wildlife, the ecosystem and livelihoods of locals. The invaders are out of control and the only solution is killing a large number of them. Geese are the problem, although for several years the same accusations have been levelled at stoats, which arrived mysteriously from the mainland around 2010. On Orkney, anti-stoat propaganda is everywhere, encouraging people to report sightings, paid for as part of multi-million-pound grants to a local organisation.
Thank you for calling the Orkney Native Wildlife Project. Due to the coronavirus restrictions, our office is currently closed. For urgent inquiries only, please email stoat sightings, all one word, at rspb.org.uk.
The Orkney Native Wildlife Project, a partnership of the RSPB, Nature Scot and the Orkney Islands Council, is carrying out a plan to exterminate all stoats under the lead of Sarah Sankey, the RSPB's former Orkney Conservation Officer. When David and Charlie caught up with her at the 2019 Bird Fair in Rutland, she admitted she didn't know how many stoats are on Orkney, insisting it doesn't matter.
There could be hundreds of thousands of things.
Yeah, when you're dealing with an eradication, quite often it's the range that's more important than the number of stoats. So we haven't actually looked at how many stoats there are, and we know we have a lot of stoats in Orkney. There's a lot of sightings. We actually want to remove every single animal, and there is going to be a huge amount of skill in actually making sure that you've got rid of every single animal. So we're going to have to do a lot of monitoring for stoats.
Many years ago, when 2010, I had a conversation with some senior RSPB people about the fact that stoats had just turned up on Orkney. And I suggested then it would be a good idea to ask the SGA, the Scottish Gamekeepers Association, who's the best gamekeeper out of a job at the moment, approach him or her and say, look, we'll give you a cottage on Orkney, we'll give you a vehicle, all the kit you could possibly want, and a great big bonus when you catch the last stoat.
The ONWP says it humanely euthanises the stoats. However, it admits the plan is based on speculation the animals might harm the island's ecology, and there is no guarantee it will work. That's after RSPB, Nature Scot, the EU Life Fund and UK taxpayers pumped about £6 million into it.
When I heard they were going to get a grant of £64,000 for the stoats on Orkney, I thought, well, that sounds very cheap. Then I found out that the £64,000 was to write the plan. Now, I don't know what you could do with £6 million for conservation, but they could have eradicated the stoats on Orkney for a few £100,000 10 years ago. They're now going to get essentially £6 million, and they may or may not succeed.
Unfortunately, the stoat eradication scheme was named slightly wrong because nobody in Orkney feels that they're going to manage to eradicate the stoats. They tried to map out that it was going to wipe out all bird life as we know it, and as far as I can see, the biggest threat to bird life in Orkney at the moment is skewers, blackbacks and crow type birds. They are absolutely brutal.
The scene is set for a potentially expensive and never-ending war on stoats. The RSPB has already complained that Nature Scot was taking too long to cough up funds for the ONWP, and farmers are refusing to allow some of the ONWP's 6,000 stoat traps on their land.
Nothing in there.
I've been on agri-environment schemes for nearly 25 years, so why on earth would I ever try and stop them helping the environment? But at the same time, it didn't look good when they got this money, a huge amount of money, and they spent it on four-wheel drive pickups and vans, brand new. I'm not going to pretend it's been easy. We did trial the land access agreement with over 100 landowners, but there has been some anger over the lack of money put into managing the goose, the growing greylag geese breeding on Orkney in the summertime. And that has caused some problems because people see this money being put into the stoat project, but then obviously the geese are causing some considerable agricultural damage. For the farmer, we do understand that the stoat is having less issues.
The problem is that stoats are not the problem, geese are. It's a case of 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, with farmers quite happy the stoats get rid of their rats. Grey-legged geese, on the other hand, have been building in numbers since the 1990s to their current plague levels.
We shouldn't have to lose hundreds, if not thousands of pounds due to a bird that should not really be here at the time of year it is here. For the migratory ones, they'll not be in until a couple of weeks yet. And so it's only residents that you're seeing at the moment.
Paul reckons he's lost about £300 on this field from goose damage.
So they sit here and then they just take turns in walking in there. You see there's the tracks that they've been going in through, you see. Down there and down there. There's your goose droppings here. Okay. They're not only messing up the barley field, they're also messing up my grazing field. Okay. Because there's cows and calves coming into here shortly.
It's quite difficult because obviously the funding that we've got is for conserving natural heritage, and so it's for conserving native wildlife, and the goose issue is an agricultural issue, so there is no evidence that we have that geese, there's no scientific evidence that geese are doing any damage to our natural biodiversity, hence we've not been leading on the issue.
So you don't think they're aggressive and they would possibly be territorial and affect things like ground nesting birds?
They are territorial, but obviously within RSPB we actually monitor our key species every year, and since the goose numbers have grown, we haven't got any declines to explain. So it doesn't look like it's affecting their numbers.
I would think the RSPB would admit to you that they are so territorial at the same time, that they are moving species around the county they're frightening them away. They don't just frighten them. They like there's lochs with small islands in them, stuff like that, water holes. In the winter time they eat every piece of cover that small animals would have in the spring, so that small animals have to move on. Red-throated drivers has been chased off certain parts that they've been there the whole time.
Some of the farmers' reflections where they felt that the geese, because they're quite big bully birds themselves, were actually pushing out some of the other rarer birds. So for example, one of them was saying they used to have red-throated divers nesting on the farm, and they were gone.
Even ONWP admits the birds the stoats are supposed to be threatening may be disturbed by the eradication and could be negatively affected.
There isn't a lot of ground predators in the way of foxes or badgers as such. The main predators for the birds here and nesting birds would be the corvids, such as ravens, hooded crows, your black-backed gulls, bonxies or great skewers. They'd be the biggest predator towards the birds.
But not stoats?
No, not the stoats. No, the stoats are minimal.
We featured Steve Rogers in a video in 2018 about the goose shooting holidays he organises in Orkney. I joined him on one of his summer evening rounds, moving geese from farmland, where it was clear RSPB reserves had become havens for them.
The hills in front of you, a lot of geese nest in there, which is why that second lot headed off that way, back to the safety of the nursery area. And with it being RSPB ground, we can't do anything on it. We could do with the RSPB coming on board a lot more for the farmers' sake. The geese are no more native than the stoats.
It was also clear there's no shortage of ground nesting birds as we pass a number of fields with dozens of curlews and lapwings, seemingly oblivious to the stoat menace. As in the rest of the UK, these species choose Orkney's heather moors to nest. The resident geese have been doing the same since they started moving in about 30 years ago.
We have hills to our back there behind us, so the nest, that's RSPB, the nest there in the springtime, and then they just come over the hills here in their droves down to the water.
So they're nesting on RSPB land?
Other nests, yes, generally, because the RSPB thought they were saving Orkney in the 80s when they came and bought up a lot of land. They were slightly naive in the fact that most Orkney's land had been cultivated that wanted to be cultivated. Nobody wanted to cultivate that peat hills and stuff like that, but they thought they were saving the wildlife. Knowing no muir burning and stuff like that, it is getting a better and better habitat for them.
The water Paul refers to is on the edge of his property and feeds the loch that Scottish Water uses to supply the islands with drinking water.
As kids, we used to come down to the loch shore, paddle and play and work. But what's happened is the whole way around here, it is just like that the whole way around. Have you seen down there? Feathers, there'll be body parts, the whole way around. And like I say, that's what's gone into your drinking water. Okay? It's more than an agricultural problem. It's a North of Scotland water problem. Okay? Would you like to go paddling in that?
Not really.
There's a dead one there, right there. That's actually a seagull, I think. Yes, that's a seagull. But you kind of what I mean? Look at it. There.
Anything dead lying around in water is never going to be good, is it? For general health.
Beth Wells has been studying links between geese, livestock and parasites such as Cryptosporidium parvum on Orkney for about 4 years. Besides testing the animals, she took samples of Paul's water.
A lot of the geese fecal matter was sedimenting on the bottom of the reservoirs, and then they get a lot of wind in Orkney, so the wind would whip this up and cause a real problem for the water providers in the provision of clean water. Now, they were coping with that pretty well, to be honest, so the finished water samples weren't contaminated, but the raw water samples were, and obviously for the water industry, it's much better if that doesn't happen in the first place.
Scottish Water, they take for here. So this is they're taking this crap with them, if you can know what I mean.
The Orkney farmers, who are really very high quality, so high quality beef farmers, were a bit bemused at how they couldn't control this parasite or control the disease. So we were looking at the levels of parvum in the geese and cattle, transferring that to the water, and then obviously affecting, there was a public health effect. And I think too we were also helping the farmers because clearly they need to control these geese, and the geese are protected. So getting some evidence of disease transmission was actually quite important from, the goose management point of view. I think the importance for the farmers is to know that they can't really put susceptible cattle out in these fields that are heavily grazed by geese. It's all about density. If you get a lot of anything, you'll get a lot of disease.
I think I can't look backwards. All I can do is look forwards and say that we've got a new goose group. It's different to the adaptive management group that was happening previously, and funding has been committed already for the first year to reduce goose numbers.
That was 2 years ago. The goose group and the funding have not yet emerged. Steve and other shooters on Orkney are still patrolling the islands daily, scaring away or shooting geese to protect this small corner of the UK food supply. As is becoming more and more often in the UK, shooters are doing the conservation work and the RSPB is claiming the cash.
Twice a day, first light when they come in for morning feed, and again evening. You can get to a farm and see nothing, but you've got to check the farms just in case, because you guarantee the one day that you don't, will be the ones that get hammered.